Welcome to the Scale Blueprint. I'm your host, Mike Ryder. On this show, I sit down with founders and business leaders to unpack how they started, how they are trying to scale, and how AI fits into the real work of building a business. Today, I'm talking with Mehul Patel, co-founder of Clairify. He and his team are building a mobile-first, AI-driven tool designed for the executive experience. They focus on helping leaders stay on top of email, Slack, Teams, and the constant flow of communication that comes with running a business. We will talk about his path into this world, how Clarify came to life, and what he has learned while building an AI product from scratch as a bootstrap founder. Mehul, great to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and I love the name Clarify too. It's great. I mean, I think clarity is one of the one of the most commonly used words in the last year or so. It's because what everyone needs right now, it seems like.
Yeah, it's so funny. My co-founder will love to hear that. We argue about the name a lot because it's actually a little bit of a crowded namespace, but he believes in that word and sort of that ethos so deeply that he's gonna stick with it. And no matter how you spell clarify, right? We're gonna compete in that space. So he'll be glad to hear it.
Yeah, that's great. So hey, I just wanted to hear about your journey, how you got to where you are, what made you make the decision to start a company from scratch, and just kind of walk me through that story.
Sure, sure. I mean, like, my career in tech, like many others, had some ups and downs, and so that was really informative to how I got here. But for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been a product manager. The bulk of my career has been in IT. So I actually started out as a technical writer, loved that job, and that's how I learned tech. I learned tech by writing about it. But then eventually I became a product manager. I wanted to try and inform how the product was built because I was seeing the downstream effects. As a technical writer, if I have to write convoluted instructions, then something went off like earlier in the roadmap, right? Or in the software development cycle. So I was like, well, let me be a little bit farther ahead. And then what I found when I got there was that, particularly the way that venture capital works is that when you work in tech, you have huge obligations to get a return on investment, to your investors. And that really is kind of like the real driver of how product is built. And so as a product manager, you think, oh my gosh, like I finally have so much influence over how the product is built, but you really don't. Customer commitments have been made, strategy has been baked, right? And you're just on this path and you're just holding on, right?
Hmm.
In 2022, uh, when the first AI master's programs were coming online, I really wanted to go back and do my master's. I'd always wanted to do it, but I was like, MBA is like I'm not super interested in this, and nothing was really like catching my interest until AI came along. And when those first programs came online, I jumped right on it. And so I finished my degree in 2023, and actually I got laid off the same week that I graduated.
Jeez.
And I had this idea, as like I really want to do something with AI, particularly with my final project, and I just didn't have the courage to quit my job.
Hmm.
Like I really enjoyed the paycheck a lot, and so but then I got laid off, and I was like, oh, like everything like kind of like, might as well go for it, right? It's going to take me a few months to get a job anyway, so I might as well go for it. Uh,
Yeah.
but in between that time, I skipped over a kind of one thing, which is back in 2019, I had a customer who was talking to me about how, hey, we should really incorporate some machine learning into this product, and that we could like do this kind of analysis and this kind of prediction. And I was thinking to myself, bro, you don't know anything about ML, and I don't know anything about ML either. Like, what are we doing here? Like two dudes sitting around talking about ML. But I went back to school, and then like when I finally figured out like what was what, like what's the difference between deep learning and traditional machine learning, and what's an LLM, and when I finally figured out the landscape of AI, I called him up. I was like, hey, maybe we should like think about doing something. And that was my co-founder, Randy. He's also in the MSP space, like so managed service provider. So he knows IT really well. And then we just talked every Tuesday and Thursday. We would just talk about like what the problems were, how we could solve it. I was introducing him to like what was going on behind the curtain with AI, right? And the tools that were available to us to solve problems.
Hmm.
And it actually took a really, really long time to put our finger on this whole idea of what Clarify is, right? The idea that you would read my website and come away with exactly what we do, right? We are the first and only app that's designed for the executive experience, right? That is not, I will help you make more sales calls. It's not, I will help you convert your leads or I'll help you build a website. That is solving for the core experience at an emotional level, right?
Right.
Of what leadership and is like and what business ownership is like. And that's what we were after. But man, to put your finger on it took us a really long time. But once we did, and we had some help. We hired some consultants to help us kind of like work through our ideas. But once we put our finger on it, that's really when things started to kind of take off. So yeah, but that was 2020 August of 2023. So it's been 2.5 years now, and we're just now getting to a place where we're just coming out of the alpha stage of our product. And a lot of people will hear that and they'll be like, "Oh, that's alarming! Like 2.5 years. Like, why did it take you so long? You can build an app in 90 seconds now, right?"
Right. Right.
But the idea, I think that is perhaps what we should uncover over the course of our conversation. It's like what you're seeing on TV is not the reality of what it's like to build a
Right.
to build a tech business, particularly from scratch.
Right. That's what I've heard. It's, yeah, you can make a fancy looking app in, a couple minutes, but does it have all the back end functionality that you really need and
Yeah.
the security and the everything else?
I'll give you a really good example. We today, like you go to our website, you'll see our pricing page. We cannot collect payment today. Like we're still working on that. Like why? I was like, oh, you just like connect it to Stripe. Okay, fine. They like connect, like punch in your Stripe account and have everything connected. But then when it comes time to remitting taxes, you're gonna have a problem, right? Like this is the reality of running a business. And like I don't want to have a problem 12 months from now because I collected a bunch of revenue and I didn't do the good accounting, right? And then I have
Right.
another headache. So the idea is
Yeah.
like when you jump in to build a business, that is different than building an app. And so
Right.
then you have to start thinking about, like, from a technology perspective, like the pricing and packaging, the role-based access control, the scopes and permissions, right? So, like, what is your cybersecurity posture? Like, none of that comes out when Replit tells you you can build an app in 90 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And then the other idea is like, I've heard like I can't remember the name of the book. I think it's called The Traction Gap, but they were like, oh, months is typically the benchmark for like, getting to the point of an MVP. But then you run into weird stuff like what is an MVP? Like what does it mean to be viable? For us, for example, like if I'm dealing in email, I know that you already have an email tool that works pretty good, right? You have either Gmail or Outlook, like it works pretty good. It's a pretty high bar for me to say, hey, come try my app. I think it's going to change your life, right? Like, I mean, that's basically what we're shooting for here. It's not like, oh, I'm going to use an AI agent to help you make more sales calls, right? That's a great app. Don't get me wrong, right? And so, but that solves a very particular point in your workflow,
Hmm.
right? Solving for the leadership experience is something that I don't think has ever been attempted, to be honest. I can't. The way that I see it is like when you sell licenses, you're trying to sell as deeply into the organization as possible, right? Because that's how money is made. But that necessarily means that I'm diluting the leadership experience. If I'm forcing you to use the same dashboard that your sales guy uses, right? That's diluting your experience. As a leader, I'm not sure that you need that, right? Like what you need is the time and attention to do deep work, to think about what's coming down 6 months from now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, that's great that you guys are addressing that.
Mhm.
So, um, just thinking about your own journey, what are some of the experiences that shape the way that you view the problems that you're trying to solve with this tool?
So I think the first thing is that like, I was a product manager for an app that was just incredibly tedious to use. Just a lot of clicks to do everything. And I think that sounds really simple, but what if we zoom out a little bit and say it was like why it takes too many clicks to do anything, or reporting is too hard to generate. What that really means is like I have to learn how to use this app, right? And then I have to remember how to use this app. And if you're in an app every single day, right? Like I use my iPhone every single day. I don't really have to remember where the Bluetooth settings are, right? Like it's just second nature to me. But if I had to use an Android, like at the end of every month, if I had to use an Android to go get some like business critical stuff done, right? Like sending out invoices, right? That I'm going to
Hmm.
struggle. But now
Right.
multiply that out. Like let's talk about how many SaaS apps are in any given business, right? Professional, particularly in professional services, right?
Right.
You're talking 10, 20, 30 apps. Like it just depends on how many services you're delivering. Now, if your view of the business is fractured across all of those SaaS apps, you as a leader have to have the time and energy to go into all of those SaaS apps and then remember how to do the reporting, right?
Right.
So that's like what too many clicks really means, right? And so when you have someone who's lived this experience, like my co-founder who ran an MSP for 4 years, right? When you have that experience and then combined with me as a product manager, right? That's the secret sauce here, right? Is like what we're really trying to do is solve the problems that he's had for decades, right? But finally have a product manager who's in a position to listen and dedicate like 100% of our energy to this one customer, right? I mean, that's really where we're starting. And then of course the risk we assume is like, are we building a product that's for everyone, right? And but again, that's my discipline, right? My job is to make sure that like I don't make the button pink just because we think it's cool, you know.
Right.
So, but that was like what we found as uh, when he was my customer and I was a product manager is that he had certain pains that were never solved. And as a product manager, I could never solve them because I had other obligations, right? The obligation was to
Hmm.
make money.
Yep.
And so that was really the core of like the core problem, right? And then from there, it's about making the tech work for you. Like what we're doing is not because, and I'll tell you, because we made this mistake. Where like I had this idea, it's like, oh, I want to use like session replay to like record what people are doing, and then you use AI to kind of transcribe it, right?
Hmm.
That was like our first idea. That's like way outside, like that's like Star Trek technology, to some to what we're doing is we're staying right in the pocket of what AI is really good at. AI is really good at generating text and summarizing text. It's really good,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And everybody has it. It's everywhere. You can't hit it. You can't hit it. You can't hit an app that doesn't have summarization, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
fundamentally, it's baked into an experience that wasn't meant for leaders.
Hmm.
And so everything that we're doing is really taking technology that's accessible to everyone, right? Yes, we're doing some, fine tuning on the back end, or we're hosting our own LLM, on the back end. But fundamentally, we're taking technology like this LLM technology, we're using it in its sweet spot. We're using it a very particular way, right? Which is and so our North Star is just very, very clear, I think, in terms of what we're doing. And it helps us make sure that we don't like on a startup journey, what you might typically hear is like, founders break up or they run out of money or they pivot too many times, right? And then
Hmm.
they kind of fizzle out.
Yeah.
We did all that almost before we started.
Really.
By the time we put dollars on the table, right?
Yeah.
We were crystal clear on what we are doing.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
part of why, like I say, like that 2.5 years, like why it took us like time t equals zero is, hey, Randy, do you want to build an app?
Uh-huh. All right. So I was curious when you're telling someone kind of non-technical at a high level what Clarify does, like say you're talking to a friend who's not really into technology, but what do you tell?
Are you forcing me to be reductive? Yeah, so okay, this is funny. So I've been married a really long time, of 15 or 16 years. I can't remember how many, but so I don't exactly know the analogy well, but I describe it as Tinder for email.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Okay.
All right.
So the idea is like Tinder invented this, or not invented, but at least popularized this whole notion of swiping through things, right? So you're swiping through profiles. And that's fundamentally our paradigm, right? So to be really reductive about it to someone who doesn't know tech, is we summarize email. That at this point, that's sufficient, right? And why, and I want to talk about like why is that the place where we start, particularly when it's commoditized, it's everywhere, right? But the idea
Hmm.
is that email is the one ubiquitous interface we have to interact with the world. If you think about a real estate agent has to talk to all kinds of people, and a senior or a young couple, it doesn't matter to people who speak English as a second language, right? They might be on Signal or WhatsApp, or they might like to do phone or email, right? The real estate agent can't be on every channel, right? The one channel that makes sense to interface with the public is email, and so it's never going away for that reason. And they deal a lot of email. And the other core reason is that as this number of SaaS applications in your environment, in your business environment grows, right? They're all sending push notifications. How? Through email. So it's your default integration into all of those SaaS apps. So it's a perfect place to start. And everybody's trying to solve this problem. But what we've done is what we're trying to do through summarization is what we want to do is solve an awareness problem, right? Fundamentally, leaders need to be aware of what's going on operationally so they can build that trust with their team, make sure that nothing's going off the rails while preserving the time and energy to go do deep work, right? Strategic work.
Right.
And so if you really think about how you consume your email, you're really just scanning your inbox and cherry picking the ones you want to do, right? Now, how you cherry pick them is just depending on how your mood or your priorities, right? But there's probably something in your email that you're really excited to get, right? And you open up that one first. We're
Yep.
catering to that experience, right?
Uh-huh.
And so in a really reductive way, yeah, we summarize email, but our interface is patterned off of Tinder. So you can use gestures to go through your email. Swipe swipe right or swipe left if you've seen it and you're like, I don't need this. Swipe right if you're like, I need to come back to this later. No
Wow.
judgments on how important it is.
Yeah.
It's not and nothing gets deleted, right? But the way that your system one thinking, um,
Hmm.
right, is that like we want to reduce your anxiety, like decision
Hmm.
anxiety. I don't want to
Right.
delete anything because there's a little bit of you that's anxious about whether you'll need this later, right?
Right.
And I don't want to mark it as important or urgent because that might change next week, right? So you'll decide in the moment, does it go left or does it go right? That's it. And if you want to skip it, right? But that's the fundamental idea is that if someone doesn't know about Clarify, what I need you to know is that there is no app today that caters specifically to the executive experience. And to
Hmm.
do that, we summarize your email, but we summarize it in a way that where you can maintain awareness using just, your intuition, right? Your lizard brain, system one, go right, go left.
Right. Makes sense. So that kind of leads me to my next question. So what is your ideal customer look like?
So for us, so I think I mentioned this before, but I use the term MSP, managed service provider. So that's the
Hmm.
space that I'm familiar with. I was a product manager in this space, and then of course I spent the bulk of my career in IT. And my co-founder Randy used to own an MSP, and so that's how we ended up in this space. And when you're starting a company, you should go with what you know. Like I didn't just start like a pharmaceutical company. I don't really know anything about biochemistry, right? I know about IT. And so this is where we decided to start. And what is a managed service provider? A managed service provider is in our space means you're delivering IT services. So cybersecurity, email service, backup, restoration, recovery, et cetera, et cetera. But if you zoom out a little bit, a managed service provider is no different than other professional service organizations. You could think of real estate or accounting, architecture, medical billing, any professional service, right? But that exists on a spectrum of like how much of your revenue is recurring, right?
Hmm.
And so when you call yourself a managed service, you're talking like a high percentage, like 30-40% of your revenue is recurring. But it's the same professional service that you would offer on a project basis. It's just now that your billing model is slightly different. And IT has certainly gone in that direction, right? You don't just need email today. You need email for, backup, restoration, recovery. Like you need that always. And so it's a recurring service. That's the space we play in managed services.
All right.
IT managed services specifically because that's what we know. But if you are a business that offers a professional service and you have a bunch of SaaS apps and you have a hard time keeping up, right? Um, then this is the app for you.
All right. All right. And so, as you've been navigating through this space, what have you learned about building an AI product that has surprised you?
Like how about an AI product? Because here's the thing. I thought that as a product manager, I thought I was hot. I was like, oh my God, I am trained. I know exactly what to do. I'm a ninja when it comes to processes, right? Operation, identifying what's the most important thing and like staying very, very focused on that. I
Right.
thought it was going to be easy, but I got three co-founders. There's three co-founders. There's 12 people on the team. There's competing priorities, and everybody believes in the one thing that we're trying to accomplish, right? Everybody understands that clarity is what we're after, but how we tack on our way there is just as complicated as all of the other previous companies I worked in, right? Because you have to have a really strong rationale. You have to, for what you choose to work on, you have to socialize that with the team and align them, get everybody on board before you can move. At the same time, moving fast is like the most important thing, right? But there's that saying like, I was like, how does it go? It's like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? So I'm gonna go to far. I'm gonna go far camp, right? And
Yeah.
so anyway, what I've learned is like when I didn't know anything about startups, I consumed everything from YouTube and LinkedIn because that was like in the internet, and that was the only place to learn. And they're telling one story, right? One story is like sell it before you build it, get your MVP out in 18 months, right? Like you know.
Yeah.
All kinds of nonsense that just doesn't reflect my reality, like of of,
Right.
of being self-funded, right? And actually building a business and betting big. Like for example, like I'm working on our SOC 2 compliance right now, right? That's a big bet. Like I'm
Right.
putting systems and processes in when our product isn't even built because I'm betting that we built the right thing. And we're gonna and when the customer comes to me and says, I'm ready, like, 100, give me 100 licenses, like I'll be ready. That's a big bet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think the biggest non-AI learning experience is just how different the reality is from the story that you hear like on the internet.
Yeah.
In terms of AI, I think the other thing that was surprising is um, nobody was at least paying attention. Like my family doesn't know what AI can do. My family doesn't know what the latest like quantized LLM is, like that hit XYZ benchmark. Like I pay
Right.
attention to that stuff. Um,
Right.
they don't care. And so, most people are still on the chat GPT. Like that's why chat GPT is making, it has so many users is because like it's just easy to use. Go to the box, type in the thing, get the thing out, like get your
Right.
answer out.
Yep.
And so when it's easy to get caught up in the latest and greatest tech, right? It's like we should all be using MCP now. Like that, we went through that phase internally, right? I was like, what is MCP? Like, there's not even what is an agent? It doesn't even have a definition, right? Until recently.
Yeah.
And so what we realized is like summarization, email continues to be a pain point, and it doesn't matter how fast AI is going. Like to this day, I haven't seen a product solve this problem in the way that we're solving it. And so you can kind of tune out the startup noise, and you can kind of tune out the AI noise and just focus on what you're doing, and you'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
I think those are the two biggest things that I've learned. I think about AI and the AI space. Today like AI is still synonymous for most people is synonymous with LLMs, right? And there's this idea that like the LM can do a lot. It's pretty flexible, right? You can ask
Hmm.
it to categorize, you can ask it to like count stuff, right? And it'll do a pretty good job. But there's
Right.
also traditional machine learning that you could leverage that's CPU based and cheap and free, right?
Hmm.
And so having that education in AI, like I don't remember every mathematical detail from school, but
Right.
I do know that there is different areas of AI and that you could pull from those different areas to solve a different problem to drive down your costs, right? So, and I think that's what a lot of the world might be missing. And what I would suggest to anyone is like get on free code camp or get anywhere, like take any AI course and finish it and just finish
Okay.
it. You
Yeah.
will know more than 80% of everyone.
Right. Yeah, that's
right?
good advice.
And so like I have a conversation with a friend later today, and he's like, "Oh, like, am I late to the game on this AI thing? Like, should I get started?" And I'm like, "Man, yeah, get started. Like, take a course and finish it, and you'll be right where everybody else is."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think we're just hitting that beginning phase where it's about to start really ramping up to the masses.
Yeah, a little bit more. What's going to be really important, and I heard this from another friend of mine, at least from people who build product. When you're dealing with the general public and they don't know the general boundaries of what AI can do and what it can't do, that's when you really start to struggle with customer satisfaction, right?
Hmm.
Like, if you look at any AI tool, what do they do like what to signal AI? They use those sparkles, like the sparkles that come off of like a magic wand, right? So like
Yeah,
what we're communicating visually is like, oh, it's magic, it's magic, it's magic. It's not magic. And so if you tell people it's magic and then the solution isn't magical, people get frustrated. You would never expect that from like a pencil, right? Like it's just like I don't, and so we're getting to us into a place where like, text generation and text summarization is a commodity, and we should start treating it like all of the other commodity tools. Like, if it's a chair, sit in it, right? Like, it'll do fine, right? But the moment you start to stand on it or like use it as a hammer, it's gonna wobble, right? So I think that's really important. Is like when people start to understand like more of the fundamentals and just the boundaries of what AI is, like I think you'll be a lot happier with the products that are put in front of you.
yeah, yeah. That's a great point. So just looking ahead, how do you think AI will shape the way businesses operate and make decisions over the next, say, 2, 3 years?
That's a good question. I'm just going to start talking and let's see if something smart comes out. What I've seen so far is everybody's focusing on automation, right?
Hmm.
Like one of the things that I really dug deep on this summer was this concept of operational maturity, right? And you can go to different benchmarks and they have different frameworks for measuring operational maturity, but generally it's tied to like, your HR performance, like your turnover, your revenue, retention, those types of things. And what we found is that, or what I found is that there's a bit of a ceiling, right? In operational maturity. It's easy to start a business. It's really, really hard to get it to be like a well-oiled machine that's just like, churning out revenue.
Right.
And to get over that hump, to get to the higher levels of maturity, people are focusing on automation, right? So it's like, your N8Ns and your Zapier, your Make.com, and your Copilot AI, which does all your sales, your sales automation, right? So they're automating processes, and that's where most of the focus has been. And
Hmm.
so when you talk about, ways to win in business, right? You've got this is sort of the economies of scale play, right? But there's other ways, right? There's access to supply, access to demand. There's other ways to win in business, but that's the one thing that they've been focusing on. And I'm not sure that that's the solution for everybody, right? Like build before you optimize. That's how we do it in software, right? And people are just jumping, I think, selling the optimization really, really hard and the automation really, really hard. And for me, I don't think that's 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 real. So I think that ultimately I don't think that's not going to take off as fast as people think it will.
Hmm.
I put it in the same bucket as like Replit, right? I don't know if you know Replit, but it builds the apps for you, right? So it's where we started this conversation. Like if we talk about the next 3 to 5 years, everybody in sort of the small business space, it's not going to take off like this, right?
Right.
You can build a Replit, but you can't productionize it,
Hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
you have to know how apps are built before you can take something that's a prototype and productionize it. And I also think that like, if you've ever used Replit, like it tends to just blow up. Everything like gets you like 80% to what you want. And it gets it done in like 20 seconds. You're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the world, right? You type in another prompt to get that last 10% and it just blows up. And people are just gonna get frustrated with that, right? And I just don't think the technology is there yet.
Yeah.
It may get there, but it's not there yet. So then you get a prototype that's working beautifully, and then how do you productionize it? Like the first thing you want to do is share it with one of your friends, right? But everybody needs a login now, right? So if you can imagine like how much functionality does Replit need to bring to the table before you can productionize that app? it's a
Right.
lot, right? And so I think that it's going to be pretty much business as usual for small
Okay.
business, right?
Okay.
Because we're waiting for the technology to mature to the point where it's reliable to solve just like basic problems. Text
Hmm.
summarization, perfect. Like if I have to whip up a contract or an NDA or like whatever it is, I'm going to ChatGPT, bang it out, right?
Hmm.
That's ready. And so what I
Yeah.
think is like next 3 to 5 years, like I think we're in that pocket, right? Which is like everybody's just gonna get on board the ChatGPT and everybody's just gonna get onto that box and like solve one-off problems like one at a time, right? And that's where we're gonna get our efficiency. Because I don't really, me personally, I don't really think that we're gonna get to the point where automation and like agentic AI is so great that it's gonna be transformative, right? People are just gonna be heads down, grinding it out the way they normally have, with a little bit more efficiency with things like ChatGPT and Claude behind, you know, sort of the wind at their back.
Yeah. Can you, because you mentioned automation and agentic AI, can you kind of give for the layman, a kind of a comparison of those two different
So
things?
automation is pretty simple. It's like if you look at N8N, it's like how do the dominoes fall, right? So for example, like, say you want a simple workflow that I'm making this up now, but somebody emails you, they didn't get a timely response, and so you want it to like automatically populate your to-do list in Excel to like just have a single source of truth of all the things you missed and that you wanted to catch up on, right?
Hmm.
I made this up, but the idea is like you want one application to talk to another application to talk to another application to talk to another application, right? Instead of you having to go into each one and plug it in. That's
Hmm.
basically automation, right? And
Right.
everybody has manual processes that they're doing right now where they go into one app, extract a piece of information, like download it, and then upload it into another piece of app, like another application, right?
Hmm. Yep.
So that is subject to automation, and it's particularly when you're using like when there's multiple people involved, right? It's really easy to like toss the ball into somebody else's court, toss it over the wall, toss it back over the wall, right? That's
Yeah.
what automation is about. When you talk about agentic is a kind of a weird word, but it suggests that your LLM is making decisions, right? And and the idea is that like but it's flexible decision making in a way where like suppose you had an if then statement. An if then statement could work just fine. But if you find yourself in a situation where it's not exactly a one or a zero, it's like, it's like a point 0.5, like it's a little bit gray, right? And you want some judgment behind whether it's a one or a zero, or like if it's an if or a then, sorry, right?
Right. Right.
When that judgment is involved, that's what people are calling agentic, right? And it's
Okay.
essentially an LLM that runs an operation over and over and over again, trying to goal seek to whatever you asked it to do.
All right. That's a great description. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So what I've seen, like at least again, like I learned from the internet just like everybody else. But the idea is like if an if then is gonna work for you, like do that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe do that until it breaks, and then figure out the other thing, because it's it's not necessary to make everything flexible. Like traditional coding works just fine, but
Right.
you may have a use case where like it needs to be more flexible. And you can see that people are struggling with it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But like if you look at ChatGPT, and they have a new playground where you can do like agentic stuff, right? Like dragging and dropping like flow diagram boxes around and like connecting them up so you can prompt and then things happen. And everybody uses the same examples, like book me a flight to Mexico, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I'm ready for a more novel, like I'm ready for a more interesting use case, right?
Yeah.
Like I can
Yeah.
book my own flight to Mexico, thank you.
Yeah. That's
Like
pretty easy.
yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is like it could be
Yeah.
the case that they use the
Yeah.
book to flight to Mexico because everyone can understand that, right? You don't need to be in the tech space. But at the same time, if I go read their documentation or whatever like that, we never really go past that. That's a good indicator for me that we're just not like we're not really there yet, right? And so again, it's like I'm going to focus on the sweet spot. I'm going to focus on the problem that's been long-standing with the technology that's available, and I'm just going to focus on the problem, and I'll let the world kind of evolve around me. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And along those lines, I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, what does progress look like and what gives you confidence that you're heading in the right direction?
Ooh, good question. So because we're bootstrapped and because I didn't really know anything about startups bef- before I started and I had to learn everything. What you consume, on social media is, so and so got into some startup got into an accelerator. They got an angel investment. They got their, they got their seed investment or their pre-seed, whatever it is, right? People hold those up as badges, as signs of accomplishment, right? And they're great accomplishments. Don't get me wrong. Like getting into Y Combinator is huge accomplishment, great. But it's almost like to the outside world, you've made it, right?
Hmm.
When really there's just the beginning. Like I practice martial arts. Like people are always after like looking for their black belt. Well, the black belt's just the beginning. It just signifies that you know the curriculum. Like, and you're not gonna hurt anybody, right? The real work starts when once you have your black belt. But the idea is um that you signal to people like, oh, I made it into this accelerator, or oh, I got my angel investment, and now like you're a made man, right? And everybody congratulates you, and um, as a bootstrap founder where every dollar matters to me because this is a dollar that I saved, right? Somewhere along the line. I don't have those same milestones, right? Like I don't have an angel investment that I can point to or a pre-seed investment that I can point to say, hey, good job, you're doing the right thing.
Hmm.
And so in the early days when it was just me and Randy and I can code, but like I can code like a prototype. I can't really code production grade code.
Hmm.
So it's just me and Randy, and we're just sitting around talking about, dreaming one day of like, building a product. It was
Hmm.
kind of like sad sack to me. Like I was kind of embarrassed to tell people I was a founder. Like I didn't want to use that word because it didn't feel real. I didn't want to incorporate because like I was like, I don't think we're there yet. Like it was just like so much self-doubt involved because you don't have those targets to shoot for because I'm not playing in that space, right? So I had to figure out like a different framework to measure our progress, right?
Hmm.
And the first one was when we got our third co-founder, right? Our third co-founder, he's a great engineer. He can do architecture, cybersecurity. He can do foundational coding. He can do everything, right? It's like the guy that you dream of having on your team. Like we got that guy, right?
Great.
And he's the reason we're around. But this guy, way smarter than me, right? In certain realms, I guess.
Yeah.
And I looked at him, I'm like, what is a guy like him doing, like hanging out with me, right? Like it just makes me feel like when I'm hanging out with people who are smarter than me or are really really good at their jobs, like I feel, and somehow I feeling adequate, like I feel like okay, I'm doing a good job, right? Like if you when you're training to be a runner, whether you're jogging or you're training for your 5K, you want to run with people who are faster than you, right? Because they bring you up, right? That's what I use internally as my signal for progress. And I look at our website. Our website has 12 headshots on it now, and it used to be just me and Randy, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's a measure of progress. And then the thing that we're looking for now is obviously we're looking to sell to customers, right? And things are looking good in that realm. People like you understand the story, right? Understand what we're trying to sell. So that one's coming up. That one's a big milestone for us. And then the other thing I think is equity, right? When people work for us, sometimes they work for below market rate because they believe in what we're doing, right? And in exchange for that risk, right, you give them equity. That's that's
Yeah.
that's how it works.
Yeah.
Until you have your story ironed out, no one has any reason to believe that that equity is worth anything. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like when you go to a company that's well established and they've just secured another round of funding and they give you some stock options, you kind of believe that that might have value one day. But if it's just two dudes hanging out that incorporated in Delaware and says here's 5 million shares, right? Like you have no reason to believe that that'll have any value.
Yeah.
And internally, when we start compensating people or, through equity, and they accept that in exchange for market rate pay,
Hmm.
I think for me, that's huge. That's huge for me, right? Because again, it's like, do people understand? the story we're trying to tell? Do they believe that we've built the right thing? And if they believe that we've built the right thing, I feel like it's a matter of time before, we nail that first big enterprise customer, right? I guess like 12 people can't be wrong, right? Like if it was just, like at a certain point, like the math
Right.
points in the right direction.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I wanted to thank you for joining me today. But before we wrap up, I wanted to give you a chance to share anything you'd like the listeners to know about Clarify. Who's it for? Where can people follow your journey or get updates as you move forward with your launch?
I guess I have three things to say. So clarify, make sure you know how it's spelled. There's an extra I in there, CLAI, RIFY.ai. And that's important. Like I said at the beginning, we're in a crowded namespace, but we believe in what we're doing and we're going to stick with it until we win. So that's the first thing. So if you're looking for us, find us there. You can download the app today in the App Store. You have to know that it's early days for us. It's more or less our alpha. It's going to be a little bit rough around the edges, and you might not know what to do when you get in it, right? That's okay. Send me an email, Mehul at Clairify.ai. Right? You are in a position now where if you decide to work with us and help us shape this product as a Clarify user, you can just email the guy and the founder, and the founder will help you out, right? So that's a win-win for both of us. I think I said three things, but I think two is enough. I think two is enough. But yeah, and then if you want to contact me, it's Mehul at Clarify.ai.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Mehul, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing your story and the thinking behind Clarify. It's always inspiring to hear about how founders put the pieces together and stay committed through the early stages. And, thanks again for joining me. And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in to the Scale Blueprint. More conversations like this are coming soon. Cheers.